Good day, my name is Dela Yimibo and I'm your expert doctor. Thank you for stopping by. In today's video, my focus will be on force majeure. I'm still continuing the conversation we started on what nobody tells you about viable export contract and how you can ensure that you sign a viable contract, a contract that will not give you issues, a contract that covers almost all the important and serious areas required for you to be able to do your shipment hassle-free. The force majeure section of the export contract addresses unforeseen events or circumstances, unforeseen events or circumstances beyond human control, and this is prevalent. In international trade, it's common. You see COVID that happened not quite long, and beyond human control and beyond the control of the parties, and this can prevent shipment. It can even delay performance of contractual obligation. So this section is crucial for clarifying the right, the obligation, the remedies that are available to the parties in the event of force majeure. Now, what are the typical provisions of this particular section? Number one is to define what a force majeure is. Both parties must agree. What, in our opinion, in this contract is force majeure? Number two, notification requirement. If you are going to claim force majeure, if you are going to activate this provision, you need to notify me, and I need to be sure you are correct. Then suspension and termination of performance for a period of time. Any form of mitigation required for damages that will be incurred. The necessary extension of the time for performance of an action. The allocation of risk and liability between the parties involved. And the termination right if the force majeure persists. If the force majeure persists. Number one is to define force majeure. An export contract should define force majeure event as unforeseen circumstances that are unavoidable circumstances that are beyond human control or beyond reasonable control of the parties, such as natural disaster, act of God, insurrection, civil commotion, war, terrorism, strike, lockout, riot, government action, or any similar event. It should be clearly defined. So we both know, understand, and agree what, in the opinion of both parties, constitute a force majeure in this contract. Because there are cases where someone is declaring force majeure for things that really cannot be force majeure. Power outage cannot be a force majeure, particularly in a country that have issue with power. It must be such that both parties cannot do anything about it, depending on who it affects, particularly the exporter. Notification requirement. The contract should specify the procedure and timeline for notifying the party. That means you need to state, the contract should state, the other party, the buyer or exporter or the seller, must be notified of an event of force majeure that incapacitates the seller or buyer within so period of commencement of force majeure. And indeed, if it's a force majeure, valid force majeure, most likely to be in the news. So even if the other party Google it, it's more likely going to find it. The party invoking force majeure should provide prompt written notice to the other party, explaining the nature of the event, the impact of that event on its performance, the expected duration, and the delay and inability to perform. That should be clearly stated and defined. So all parties are clear about the implication and the impact of this force majeure on the business. The implication and impact of this force majeure on the business. Then suspension or termination. Now, the reason for stating force majeure is because there will be suspension of activity or termination of something that is supposed to be done or delay in that thing. That's actually one of the reasons. So the contract may provide for suspension or termination of the affected party's obligation during force majeure event, depending on the severity and duration of the event. Performance may be temporarily suspended until the force majeure event has ceased, or the contract may be terminated if the performance becomes permanently impossible or commercially impracticable. If the force majeure persists for too long, it might mean a termination. For example, what if it's a force majeure that even destroyed the whole factory and the guy cannot even produce again? That might mean a termination of the contract, depending on the severity of the impact of the force majeure. The contract should also require the parties to take reasonable measures to mitigate the effect of force majeure. That's mitigation of damages. mitigate the effect of force majeure event and minimize any resulting damage or loss. This may include implementing alternative plan, seeking alternative sources or method of performance, cooperating with the other party to find mutually acceptable solution. In most cases, it might require the parties in question to seek for extension of the time. In some cases, it might be able to take up an insurance, and that might help to mitigate this issue. Extension of time. In the event of a force majeure event, the contract may provide for an extension of time for performance to account for the delays caused by force majeure event. The duration of extension and any condition for granting extension should be clearly specified in the contract, because extension might mean I don't need that product again. Extension might mean the product is no longer useful to me. So if there be extension, in the event of force majeure, the exporter can ship 2 weeks after the latest date of shipment. So latest shipment is 30th of January. I'm giving him 2 weeks more. That means he can ship by 15th, or not before 15th of February, because force majeure delays shipment by the end of January. So in the event of force majeure, the contract may provide extension of the performance to account for the delay by the force majeure event, and the duration of the extension and any condition for granting that extension should be clearly specified in the contract. Allocation of risk and responsibility. The contract may specify how the risk and responsibility are allocated between the parties in the event of force majeure. This may include provision regarding allocation of costs, losses, damage, insurance coverage associated with the event of force majeure. The easiest way to allocate this is to have insurance. If you envisage this can be an issue, or the liability insurance, actually, liability insurance, taking up a liability insurance might be a good way to be able to help, so that the impact of this contract not going ahead will not be too much on the other party. Termination. The contract may grant either party the right to terminate the contract if the force majeure event persists for an extended period of time, rendering the performance commercially impracticable or impossible. So the procedure for exercising termination and right and consequences for termination should be clearly stated and outlined right within the contract. If this video has been of no benefit to you, give it a thumbs up. If you have a friend that needs to hear about it, share with your friends. If you have a question for me, drop it in the comment section. If you are new to Global Trade Tutor platform on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel and click on the notification bell so you know when we upload the next video still talking about export contract. My name is Dela Emibo, and I'm your export doctor, and I'm signing out.